I wish you could see our oasis so blue. We were all born here, unsure what that means. Our petty borders and wars don't mean a damn thing. A hateful world can feel so crowded now that I'm up here all alone. I wish you all could see you've forgotten your home. Look up, these stars are just the sea. Look up, stay the course with me. Look up, every river, every creature running wild, born our sacred mother's child. This place is our only home. Look up, you are not alone. Lights below, can you look above? Every single heart yearns to be loved. One thin blue skin is the breath of every life. Every tree breathes with us through the lonely night. If you were looking down beside me, would you forget the hand that feeds you? Know that no moment is wasted, that we carry each other through. Look out, these stars are just the sea. Look out, stay the course with me. Look out, every river, every creature running wild, born our sacred mother's child. This place is our only home. Look up, you are not alone. There is no them, there's only us. It's only this, it was always thus. We share this air, we share this sky, the world within. We are the reason why. Look up, these stars are just the sea. Look up, stay the course with me. Look up, every river, every creature running wild, born our sacred mother's child. This place is our only home. Look up, you are not alone.
For a spiritual community for godless people, I just came out of my preparation room, the rectory, if you will. This is just an ordinary bathroom. Don't get excited. I'm Exmo Joe. I'm going to quickly fix my camera here. Sorry. Didn't get much chance to practice as I've been preparing sermon today. And I thought at the last minute, I wish I had that video to show where I could show it easily. And so we're going to try actually loading the video I'm thinking about. And if it doesn't work, then just forget I said anything. But I wanted to show you some clips from a video, a live stream that I did a few weeks ago with a young Mormon, a very smart young man. Luke Sowerman is his name, LJ or Luke Sowerman. He has a podcast I recommend to you as soon as I remember what it's called. Something theology, rational theology. I forget. I'll link it in the show notes here afterwards. But basically, what you need to know is this is a young man who's studying theology at Brigham Young University. And I started hate watching his program, as I often do with Mormon content, just to go, oh, these Mormons, they think they understand theology, blah, 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 blah. And I was actually a little frustrated to learn that he seemed pretty smart, actually. Um, it, it was more than frustrating, but really, let me see if I can even get it to load.
All right, we are
Okay, sorry. As I was saying, it looks like we'll get a chance to actually watch it. LJ was interesting because I was watching his program, and I went to discover. I went to his page to discover what it is actually that his channel is ultimately all about. And he told the story about how he had recently come home from his mission just a couple of years ago. And that while he was on his mission, he had experienced such extreme depression. And that touched my heart, because I realized, wow, that's my story. I'm just going to preface this. I'm just going to skip through here and just play a few clips from it for you. And I'm experiencing it with you. I haven't watched this since we did this back in December, I think. But I was really impressed. It's only an hour long, this interview, but we're not going to watch all of it, obviously. But ever since I started the Church of Korihor, I have had people reach out to me more consistently than any other moment, any other thing. People reach out to me who were once missionaries for the Mormon Church about the spiritual crisis that they are experiencing, even after leaving the church in most instances, of dealing with the aftermath of the anxiety of being a missionary and carrying a secret. And especially men who served on missions will tell me about their experience, and echoing my experience on my mission, of how they couldn't tell anyone how close they were to the brink their entire missions, namely that they weren't sure they wanted to go on living, and that they couldn't talk about it. And men and women have reached out to me about this over the years, have confided this in me, but particularly the men. A lot of our brothers, our ex-Mormon brothers, carry shame and guilt all their lives, and can't tell anyone. And it breaks my heart. And so I reached out to this young Mormon to ask him to tell me a little bit more, in hopes that in the 25 years between when I was a missionary in Peru and when this young man was a missionary in Europe, the church had maybe learned a few things. The Mormon church had hopefully learned a few things. And I was both impressed and also disappointed at what the answer was. And so I said, but I had told him, I said, honestly and sincerely, I want to know. And my hope is that the answer is yes, the church has learned something about helping to support missionaries through the most difficult calling that they are likely to give you in your life. And I want to just show you a few clips from my conversation now with LJ Sowerman.
sort of live in the future. This is pre-recorded. It was fun for me to engage with him in the past. So that's why I'm a little bit excited for this. This is silly. I'm not doing that. And then I saw you arguing with evangelicals, and I went, oh, this is good. I mean, this is good. When you got into it with that guy about about Exodus not being entirely sustainable from an archaeological standpoint, and he went into, didn't Jesus quote from Moses and quote from and I was like, I guess maybe he did. And you were like, I don't know if he did or didn't. It seems to me you said, and then you said, but Jesus talked about Job too. And I went, oh, shit. That
in some way contributed to my sadness, my loneliness.
my mission in 99 to 2001. So,
Ooh, dang.
yeah. So, I found Jesus at 14 in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. A big part of my teenage survival, I can really attribute to religion, to Mormonism, which I do consider Christianity. So anybody out there who, wants to play that game, you can go against me and LJ together. We'll take you on. It will not be pretty. And then, I went on my mission, and I lost my faith in God on my mission in Peru.
Oh, really?
And yeah, but it was, the church kind of became my way of coping with my depression in my teenage years. And then when I went on my mission, that faltered for me, and it became existentially bad. And I've talked about that enough. My audience has heard me talk about it, so I'm not going to beat that dead horse. But it seems to me like that resonated with your story. And I wanted to switch over talking about your experience. Does that resonate with you? What was your experience?
Yeah, I mean, so I was, probably, I'm assuming you were also born into the church?
Yes.
Yeah, so I was born into the church, kind of just, went to church because, you're a kid, you have to go where your parents go. But eventually, I also kind of got pretty bad depression like my first year of high school due to a whole set of circumstances. But and so I was just very lonely. Was certainly, that's probably the best word to describe it. It was a painful loneliness that always seemed to cloud me. And so it was just a bad year. And also I'd kind of resolved before that school year had started that I was going to compromise some of my, church values or whatever. And so that kind of, I think in retrospect, in some way contributed to my sadness, my loneliness. But then that summer, my parents had me go to EFY, right? And it's kind of cliche, but I went to EFY, had to read the scriptures for the first time by myself. And in doing so, I still remember looking in the gospel library search tab, loneliness. I was like, how can I address this problem? And so I still remember I listened to this one talk by Jeffrey R. Holland from 2009. None were with him, and he details the Via Dolorosa, right, when Christ is going on the path to Calvary, previously in Gethsemane, and just talks about how lonely Christ had been and the fact that he descended below all. And so just in hearing that story and reading other scriptures, I had a couple of scriptures I kind of clung to from that week. I had a pretty deep kind of born again experience almost, where I was like, oh my goodness, this Jesus Christ figure, Jesus of Nazareth, I really do believe is the Son of God. I do believe that he suffered my pains and all of this. And so my depression didn't go away immediately. Like the next year kind of was even worse, I'd say. But I did have this kind of spiritual anchor, this rock. And I kind of developed this distinction between the terms joy and happiness. I was like, I'm certainly not happy by any means, but I'd say I have this deep abiding joy that I'd found in this anchor of Jesus Christ, which had been given to me by the church. So that was essentially my initial conversion to Christianity. And then, I went on my mission. And I still remember in my stake president interview, he's asking me all the testimony questions. And then it got to like Joseph Smith. And he's like, do you think Joseph Smith is a prophet? And I'm like, well, I'd imagine he is, but I can't say that with the same certainty I can say, God exists or Christ is the savior. And he was like, he appreciated the honesty. And so we talked about it a little bit. But that's kind of where I was at the beginning of my mission. And then on the mission, went to Hungary, so not the easiest, not the most materially successful mission, and so it's kind of hard. But I remember there was this one week we were working really hard, and then we had a bunch of lessons, and it was really weird because everybody in all the lessons told me I was deceived, and so that kind of kicked off like this. It wasn't. I never really questioned the existence of God during that period, because, and I guess I should add, in addition to that kind of initial conversion as a 14-year-old, I also, especially as a junior and senior, really started doing Mormon's challenge in Moroni 7, where he says, pray to the Father with all the energy of your heart that you may be filled with charity. Because I used to be kind of a misanthrope. I used to really not like people. But then after doing that and really pleading with God to allow me to love others as he loves people, whether or not this was all psychological, whether or not, I choose to attribute it to the gift of God. I really got to a place over time, gradually, where I really I love people. And I don't know that could have happened without a God, or at least that's kind of how I choose to interpret it. Right. But so, yeah, I on the mission, I didn't really question the existence of God. I felt like I had pretty solid grounding for believing in God. It was more of a denominational thing. And I was like, okay, yeah, I got to look into this Joseph Smith guy. It's kind of sketchy. I really did not like, like most Mormons, probably, I felt very uncomfortable when church history was brought up or things. And so, but after that point, I really got into it and started looking into what other Christian denominations believed. And I guess, long story short, after a period of probably like 4 or 5 months ish of just reading stuff, listening to stuff, whatever, I came to a point where I was pretty much, continued to be deeper converted to Jesus, and converted pretty much the first time to the restoration, and to the idea that Joseph Smith really was a prophet. Certainly not a perfect guy by any means, but he did some good stuff, I think. So, yeah.
Cool. Yeah, there's a whole conversation we could unpack there, because the same conversation that I referred to about you're going up to Temple Square, where you were talking about basically in layman's terms, because I'm going to dumb it down for me and for the world. You were basically talking about how Scripture is made, and I was impressed at how you kind of make the case. I feel like Alex O'Connor, my fellow atheist. Welcome on the show, Church for Atheists. Anytime, Alex. Doctrinal point.
We're going to skip ahead a little bit here. We don't have time to go over all this.
Words that leaves you, the experiencer, transformed. Yeah. And he talks about how epilepsy is another one that he specifically brought, because
intelligently. But I do think that
part that LJ actually does share with me how he what has actually changed since I was a missionary in the church, and I was somewhat glad to hear it. So I just want to reiterate that part.
Spirituality is inevitably mixed with the mental, the physical, every part of you,
which I understand as being a state at which basically, yes, you're suffering, as all beings suffer, but it's worthwhile. And in that regard, I'm like, damn, but that isn't that exactly what everybody is after, whether you're in
depths of depression, and have this abiding joy that sustains you. From a historical figure came to this earth, and he suffered
for in your own personal work. You're trying to find a reason why
suffering
should be justified, not just from a big picture perspective, but you in your life. How would you say that this joy that you're describing there on your mission, if you're going back to your missionary experience, how would you say that is different from being happy?
Yeah, so I think
actually,
a simple way I would explain my distinction between the happiness and joy is I'm happy when I eat some chocolate, right? Or I'm happy when I don't know, let's say, listen to my favorite song. I'm happy when somebody compliments me, right? Those are things, simple examples of happiness, right? It's like, you feel like this little boost or whatever. And now joy, though, at least in the way I've defined it and made this distinction, joy is more this continuous kind of, I don't even know how exactly to describe it. I like to use like it's like an anchor. It's like a just this steadfast. I don't even know. Let me think of how I should word this. It's like I can be very sad, but have this joy. And I guess the joy is just this, it's like a safety net almost, where even though you're being dragged down, you've got this safety net and you can feel it. And you're like, and it could be different for different people, but for me, it's like Jesus Christ, Jesus of Nazareth, the historical figure, came to this earth and he suffered for my sins, for my infirmities, and he knows what I'm going through. And not only that, the reason he did that is because he loves me and because he wants me to become as he is, perfected in all the moral attributes. And so essentially that's kind of what I mean by joy. Is it's more this, I guess it's almost synonymous with like a sustaining faith, right? Where it's like you have this one item that regardless of what happens, you can cling on to it, you can hold on to it. And so you're never going to, you know, do things to yourself or let things sort of affect you in certain ways, because you have this hope, this faith, this joy that sustains you regardless of how happy or sad you may be. And so that's kind of the distinction I make, where it's like, even though I might have this great joy, that doesn't mean I'm always going to be necessarily smiley or necessarily feeling good. It's very interesting. It's like you can be in the depths of depression and have this abiding joy that sustains you from second to second. So
it sounds like that's interesting. Thank you for saying it that way. That is that's actually inspirational, to be honest with you. And so it seems to me like that's really about meaning. Would you say that that's about right? I mean, that basically you like your faith in the atonement and in the love of Christ, provides a meaning for whatever else you may be going through, good or bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly this higher celestial form of purpose, right? And I suppose you could find that in other things as well, right? Like I guess,
particularly in the restoration. And for what it's worth, it's not true that you'd be better off sent home in a pine box than not at all.
This is an important part of
For a lot of us from my generation, I'm curious if this is true for your generation, or maybe for you personally. I don't ask you to speak for everybody. A lot of other missionaries from my generation, that phrase, it'd be better if I came home in a pine box, drove existential crisis. Like a lot of missionaries that I know now, I can look back and finally, after years, honestly say there were moments where I thought, no, it'd be better. That'd be, I don't know that I don't think I can hack it. I don't know if it's because I'm weak. I don't know if it's because I am a sinner. I don't know what the problem is here, but I'm not going to make it. And so I don't know if that's still pervasive in missionary culture. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so I can mainly speak to my own mission experience, right? But obviously I have a lot of friends from various places that served in various places. And I'd say that kind of sentiment is pretty much, in my experience, pretty much gone. Where I think I've heard that quote once or twice. I think I even discussed it with some of my mission friends one time, and we're like, yeah, that's kind of an unhealthy mindset. And so it's like, I appreciate, well, on one hand, it's, self-sacrifice is a beautiful concept, right? It's a beautiful principle. That's what Christ is, the ultimate embodiment of self-sacrifice for a greater good, right? And so on one hand, it's good, but at the same time, I'm not God in the flesh. And so something that was really drilled into me by both of my mission presidents, I had two wonderful mission presidents, was, that concept in Mosiah 4, where it's like, don't run faster than you have strength. Don't labor more than you can, right? And so it's like, you've got to find this balance, this middle ground. And this is kind of generally what I found in my generation. And, older people will call us soft or lazy or whatever, but I also think we're just more more honest in terms of what we're able to do. And I think in doing that, we can be more efficient, even. So, and there's that other phrase, right? Who was it? Was it Hinckley that talked about it, where it's like, forget yourself and go to work, right? And again, I think that's I don't think it's a bad idea. I think it's a good guiding principle. But I don't think that what that means is like literally never think about yourself. I think that's more of, as far as you are able, put your desires, your cares, your time, on the sacrificial altar for the benefit of other people. But when you have certain mental health things, or you need a second, or whatever it is, you're spiritually in need, you should probably attend to yourself before you go to other people. And there's this quote in Preach My Gospel that says, and I don't know where I stand on it. I talk about it with friends sometimes, but it says that you can't convert people past your own conversion. And I forget if they took it out in the new one or not, but it's kind of an interesting idea. So if that's true, then you should probably figure your own spirituality and stuff out first, right, before you start go and try to convert other people, or at the very least can currently be spending a lot of time on your own beliefs and stuff like that, so you can more honestly, more genuinely help convert other people. But yeah, I'd say I do hear a lot of horror stories though from from other missions, where it's like kind of this idea does still pervade. But I'd say it's definitely on the way out. And that's not to say that missionaries are getting lazy or things like that, but like, for example, when the church allowed missionaries to call every week their family, right? That's definitely an open move away from this. Forget your, back in the White Handbook, right? It said, put all thoughts of home or girlfriends or future out of your mind. That's absolutely not the mindset anymore. So,
Oh, that's good. That's a fair point. I didn't really even consider that, to be honest with you. Well, I mean, I've been aware that things like some missionaries now are like, they keep their Facebook accounts while they're on their missions, and then they like Facebook message their parents and their family and stuff. Like, I've gotten Facebook messages from my nieces and nephews, and I'm like, "Are you okay? Is there something going on?" Because like, you're right. When in 99 to 2001, I could call home on Christmas and Mother's Day. That was it. And that's a pretty major change. Even just being able to email. I remember when I found out that they could email their parents. I was like, you can email your parents? What? So it's a pretty major difference. So that's good. And especially with, like you talked about, the loneliness. Loneliness is a pretty pervasive problem in our society now, and especially among young men. It's deeply concerning. And so the idea that maybe keeping connectivity with home open, communication with home more instantaneous, probably would help to diminish that culture of loneliness, because being a missionary is a pretty lonely experience. At least it was in my experience. So I'm glad to hear that, actually. Did you feel like there were resources that the church provides? And I'm not asking this as a challenge or anything. Again, I'm actually genuinely curious and hopeful. Did you find that, like, while you were in the field, that there was an understanding that if you need help, we will get it for you? You just have to, there's a process to ask for help?
Oh yeah, certainly. So like, even from the MTC, there's this new, I don't know how new it is, but there's this newer resource called Adjusting the Missionary Life. And so it kind of has these different sections on what should I do if, I'm, what are some examples? If I'm feeling, depressed, or what should I do if I'm feeling, I don't know, like horny, or what should I do if I'm feeling this way or that way? And it kind of has these suggestions for what to do. And there's also kind of this, I don't even know what to call it, but there's this thing like at the end of the resource that's describes like 4 different states of being. So you've got like the green zone, which means like you're doing super good, and you're doing all good. You've got like the orange zone, I think it was, where you're like, yeah, I'm not doing the best, but I'm still pretty good. And then you've got like, I don't remember if it jumps right to the red zone, but essentially there's these different like zones, and it's like, make sure to self-assess yourself pretty frequently. And then I don't remember if this was a mission thing or like if it's in the actual resource, but it's like if you're 3 days or more in that red zone where you're like just not doing it, make sure to contact like your mission president and get something set up with him. So yeah, I think I didn't always find adjusting missionary life to be the best thing, but it's certainly a great step in the right direction, right? So
I hadn't heard about that, so that's interesting. I'll have to take a look at that. That's good to hear if that's true, and if there's if there are resources allocated for it. Certainly, the church has the money to pay for resources like that.
Yeah, and then also my first mission president had it was an obligatory thing. He had all the missionaries every year go through the church's emotional resilience program. So we take time out of our day and meet with our district and go through emotional resilience, which was pretty good too.
Emotion, is that like a manual or is that just like a practice? What does that look like, emotional resilience?
Yeah, I think it was a manual. It's kind of like the church's financial independence stuff, if you're familiar with that.
No.
Yeah, so it's
Is
like
that new too?
I guess I don't know. I'm only 20, 21. I don't know.
Right. That's right. Man, you really are young. That's wild. Okay. Yeah, I'll have to look into that. Well, I'm certainly excited to hear that that's the case, if that's true.
Okay. So we're going to stop with that. Yeah. So I didn't mean to just take you down memory lane on this. I'm grateful to LJ Sauerman for being willing to be on my program, Go Into the Lion's Den with this ex-Mormon. So I was doing a podcast just the other night. As you guys remember, probably this was the Friday broadcast. And at the end of it, somebody came in at the end of the broadcast, even though it's like, 2 a.m. here, you know how I will do sometimes, and happened to mention that I only caught the last 6 minutes, but thanks for saying what you said about missionary work and about the existential crisis of missionaries. The first time that I talked, I wrote a whole book on this subject, a memoir. I was very young to be publishing a memoir, but I did because I thought it was important to talk about how my mission really was how I came to understand my life as being purposeless objectively because there was no God, and that it was selling other people the sausage of faith that made me never want to eat it again. And I plainly admit that the reasons I was tempted to believe that God didn't exist were mainly emotional reasons. They were about the crisis that I was experiencing on my mission, as I felt lonely and as I felt like there was constant suffering. I can look back now 25 years later and see that many of the factors that caused me to feel like I didn't want to carry on living were actually neurodivergence. And for a while, and that was actually very good for me, because for a while, I felt very resentful of all the missionaries, former and current missionaries from my mission, people who encouraged me to go on my mission, who thought and said that it was this great experience and so forth, who must have been going through what I was going through and didn't say anything to me about it, didn't warn me that this was going to happen. And it wasn't until I was older and had a diagnosis for ADHD and understanding that even scientists don't know what ADHD is. Neuroscience is still discovering what it is and what its relationship is to depression, what its relationship is to autism, what its relationship is to obsessive compulsive disorder and narcissistic personality disorder and borderline personality disorder. We still don't fully understand. As a matter of fact, frankly, it seems like the more the science accelerates and the clinical work accelerates in understanding what the spectrum is the more people that it encapsulates, and the more that we understand that neurodivergence isn't just the difference between neurotypical people and people with some species of autism. It's the difference between people who seem to function and succeed in a world structured around not being autistic, not having ADHD, not having obsessive compulsive disorder, not having any of these things that are on the spectrum, and that the world is more or less made by these people for these people, and they may be at the end of the day, we don't know. They may actually be in the minority. It may be more of us out here, our neurodivergence, and that in the end, neurodivergence is not a class of people who are not neurotypical. It's a class. It's all people, and that we just have a high visibility. It seems to me. The more I read about it, the more I talk about it, the more I talk to people who've done more reading than me about it, that we have this group of people who are highly visible in our society and who climb up in hierarchies very quickly. And a mission is a hierarchy. A church is a hierarchy. A government is a hierarchy. Academia is certainly a hierarchy. And especially in the Western world, but really in every world, I would argue, but especially in the Western world, hierarchies are our preference for everything, because they're easy to understand. They're easy for everybody to perceive. They leave us with fewer questions to ask about. Is this really, should we really be doing this? Is this, this task or that task really worthwhile? Are we just spinning our wheels here? Should this company exist? Should this product even exist? Should this system exist? Instead, because there isn't time and energy to spin our wheels on everything going on at the same time, our brains tend to prefer a system that you look at and say, listen, Jack says this is what we're doing, so it's what we're doing. And so neurodivergence, as I understand it, is that is not an understanding just of how I am different from neurotypical people. It's an understanding of how all of us are different from each other. And our brains work with these patterns that are developed over time. And that a lot of these patterns are about dealing with anxiety, particularly anxiety about our past, our individual past, our collective past. Guilt and shame are built into there, which naturally occur in our thinking as ways to try and help us, that we try and examine how we can make better decisions in the future. But especially when you have obsessive compulsive disorder or ADHD or autism, you can get stuck in a pattern of thinking about your past. And if you have an anxious attachment style, as they know it, and again, these are all very experimental terms. They're still trying, even the people who came up with them are still trying to figure out what the hell they are. Is that you'll find that you will do just about anything to keep people from abandoning you. And you will start to think more and more about when somebody says they don't want to hear a discussion from you, or when somebody slams a door in your face, or when somebody tells you you're being a shitty missionary you're being a crappy missionary in Mormon language, any variation of that. And you have these moments where your self-esteem is cut down, and you think, why are they so good at this and I can't seem to do it? And then you look at their behavior. I would often notice in my mission, people who had a lot of success in the field, more success than I did in terms of getting baptisms and so forth, had a very infectious self-esteem, to the point where they were a little bit full of themselves. And in fact, in some cases, they were extremely full of themselves, especially the men. And there's a whole conversation to have. I hope we do have one day with somebody who can speak to this, who is a woman who experienced a mission. Because I don't want to speak for them, but I did notice increasingly, we only have male leaders in our missions. Priesthood is a male tribute. Penis and priesthood go together, as they say. They don't say that. I came up with that. Don't you credit anybody else with that. I said that. Penis and priesthood go together. And I'd have these, we'd have these district leaders, we'd have these zone leaders, we'd have these assistants to the president, we have the president of our mission himself. And I've said many times, by the way, how much respect I have. Hi, Lisa. How much respect I have for my mission president, my main mission president, because I had another one at the end, but President Benitez, who taught me a lot about being a good man and taught me a lot about being a good person, and by example mainly. But I would look and I would notice that the missionaries who got put into leadership positions above me in the hierarchy would often talk down to the sister missionaries, very like everything was mansplained in ways that they had to just sit there and smile and just kind of take it. And I would often think, what's going through her head right now? Like, is she sitting there going, oh, I guess this is my time to sit down, shut up, and learn at the knee of the wise priesthood leader? And maybe that's not true. But it seemed to me like if I were in her position right now, I'd be very annoyed. If I were in her position right now, I'd be tempted to stand to look elder so and so in the eyes and say, "Why are you talking down to me right now? Is this good leadership in your mind?" But because I was in a privileged position to do that, and I think partially as a consequence of that, President Benitez decided not to promote me in the hierarchy. Most of my mission, I was a junior companion, and I look back on the brief conversations I had, because we never had much time, President Benitez and I, to talk about why. But he would mention to me when I would ask him, like, can I ask you, why am I always, I was senior companion in one companionship, and then I was made junior companion. And then I have been several times up until my last area I was made a district leader. And I was never a zone leader or AP. And it seemed at the time very important to me. And in retrospect, I realized I can now look back and see what President Benitez was telling me. I had a very wise mission president, actually. And he looked at me and he said, he said, Elder, you are so concerned about that. And what you guys are forgetting is that you're not called to be zone leaders or district leaders or assistants. You're called to be a missionary. And these 2 years, we create this hierarchy to keep an administrative order. But in the end, when you look back on this time in the future, you're hardly even going to think about things like junior companion, senior companion, zone leader, AP. None of that's going to matter. What's going to matter is you spent 2 years of your life here doing the work, and you're going to care, and you're only going to remember whether or not you did the best you could and what it means to you. And all of this that seems so important to you, that seems so important right now, is going to be so unimportant in the long run. And he was so right. Even with all the bitching and moaning I've done about missionary work, all the bitching and moaning I've done about Mormonism, all the bitching and moaning I've done about Christianity and God, since I've become an atheist, which was while I was out there, I determined that I was an atheist, and couldn't tell anybody. And in fact, it was years before I started to use that word for myself. Back then, I would just call it agnosticism, or I would have called it doubts, or living in my doubts, or living with my doubts. But inwardly, I would have to admit that the surety that I had that my life was purposeful, that what I was doing in Peru was meaningful, was gone. The instant that I realized that if there was a God who would send me here and then leave me when I called out to him, asking him, can you give me some kind of noise here, some kind of, gladness of heart, some kind of joy. This what LJ Sowerman there was referring to as this, like, what did he call it, like, pervasive joy or whatever. I get nothing. And then I'd found that if I was going to keep my spirits up, I had to figure out small ways in which I could lift myself up out of this depression. Praying did absolutely nothing for me. For the first time in my life, prayer made me feel more depressed and more upset because I realized that God wasn't there. But hymns were a different thing. Music lifted my spirits, whether it was secular music from the world or just singing hymns. And we were really only allowed to listen to hymns, or in our mission with President Benitez, we could listen to soundtracks or classical music. And occasionally on P Day, we would listen to the music of the local people in Peru. That was against the rules, but I did it. I did it with my companions, and when they would ask me, especially once I was a district leader at the end of my mission, and they'd ask me, "Are we really listening to music I could be listening to before I came on my mission?" Because most of my missionary companions were Peruvian, and I said, and I would say, "Listen, it's P Day. P Day is not just time to prepare physically, it's time to prepare emotionally and prepare to serve the people that we're here to serve, and that's the Peruvian people. So if we're enjoying what they're enjoying, we're getting, and it seemed to them like an excuse, and it probably was an excuse just to listen to music that I was listening to all the time anyways, because it was playing everywhere. Peruvians are very musical people. And you come to love it. As you come to love these people, you come to love their traditions, you come to love their fashions, you come to love their history, and you come to love their music, their culture. It's a very important part of their culture. Sorry, just making sure that's not an emergency. And as I did that, I felt less and less alone, and came to understand that I was surrounded all the time with people. Peruvian people. And that I wasn't just sent there to be an American who was denying himself, like he was going through Lent or something, all of the pleasures I missed about life back in America. I was there to love the Peruvian people. In my pursuit of this Christ-like love of Peruvians and of other human beings, I lost my love for Christ. As I realized that the Christ I read about in the Bible didn't love people the way that I loved Peruvians. And that I learned to love people by learning to love Peruvians. In a real way, I had become better than Christ in my own view. And when I felt guilty about that, thinking, wow, my pride is really starting to get away with me, I would think, why? If there is this love for these people, and supposedly Christ's love for us is that he would give his life for us, but I'm out here not dying for these people, but living for them and sharing joyful things with them. The more that I would work among these people, the less I taught them about Joseph Smith, the less I taught them about the Book of Mormon, the less I taught them about the priesthood and tithing and the word of wisdom. And the more I came to understand people and realizing these people needed to hear about problems that were in Peru, and that Joseph Smith never understood these problems, that Christ never understood these problems if he was ever a being who understood anything. But whoever wrote Jesus of Nazareth didn't understand the problems that Peruvians were having, didn't understand the problems that I was having. And as I came to accept that that is the more important thing to learn from my missionary experience, that's when I stopped feeling depressed that I wasn't home with my friends or with my family. And I stopped being so frustrated and fed up with the fact that I never had privacy, which was something I really took for granted because I just can't mask. I didn't realize that these were the words that you would use because I didn't know I was autistic. In 1999, 2000, 2001, nobody knew that I was autistic. Nobody knew that the experience that I was having was something you would call ADHD, or autism or ADHD or neurospicy or neurodivergent. These words, apart from autism and ADHD, they didn't really exist. And ADHD and autism didn't mean anything like what they mean now. I mean, hardly anything like what they do now. And we didn't have nearly as much science for understanding these things. But the experience of masking was one that I was living all my life, whether or not there was a scientific journal article to explain it, or whether or not there was clinical psychology to support it. I was living it. I am my own, case study in living as an ADHD person, whatever the hell that is, and whatever the hell we're going to call it in the future. And my loneliness wasn't ever cured. Instead, it was a part of my experience that I would remember the rest of my life. And I know that this isn't a message that appeals to everybody in the world. I wanted to record this so that people like me would have it for the future. Maybe some of you out there who see this in the future are Mormons. Maybe you are Christians. Maybe you aren't from our tradition at all. I would love it if you would leave a comment and tell us who you are and what your experience is and where you come from and what drew you to this message. But I want to share with you now a message that I have many times over the course of the last 25 years turned to and written over and over and over and over again. As I tried to sort out my discovery, a discovery that has existed for me in a daily emotional, spiritual refinement as an atheist and as an ex-Mormon, and as a neurodivergent person, as a person with autism or ADHD, because I am very much on both sides of that spectrum, or the border of that spectrum, however that works out. And as a father of children with autism and ADHD, and raising them and parenting them, and discovering in the process that I had more love and compassion for my children with their experience of high anxiety than I did I had more love and compassion for them than I had for myself. And that all my life, I have been searching for somebody to have that level of compassion for me and love for me. And I was always surrounded by people who wanted to, but didn't know that I needed something because I didn't know how to ask for it. Because I didn't know how to function in a way that people think of as typical, as normal. I didn't know that you're supposed to convey with words that you are in crisis. I didn't realize that people could look at me, see my face, see and not see the emotions that I could feel like they were beaming out of my face. That to them, I was just staring off into the distance, or I was just smiling or functioning or carrying on because my mask had grown so I'd become so good at masking and pretending to be human. And it wasn't until I started using it, that wording of saying, oh, well, you humans don't understand. I am an alien boy robot, and I am not experiencing what you are experiencing. I would say that very sincerely, at first. And then as I started to talk to more people, I come to realize that that's when I say that, I should say it should be that I say that very jokingly or ironically, because the fact of the matter is there are more alien robots on this planet than you know. And most of us have gotten so used to masquerading as human beings that we don't even always recognize each other. And that if you can accept that and acknowledge that, suddenly the masks around of the ADHD and spectrum people around you, you start to see the cracks. And as you see those cracks and realize that there is another neurospicy person behind that mask who is like you, then all of a sudden you realize how not alone you are. So I thought I would share this with you, what I had written. If I could go back to myself as a missionary 25 years ago, this is what I wish that I could have said. I'm going to read it to you so I don't screw it up or ramble on for hours. If I could go back 25 years ago to Elder Rollins in the Peru Lima North Mission, this is what I would say. Joe, listen to me. It's all right to feel let down, whether it's by the world or by your parents, your country, your religion, or even yourself. You've set your expectations high for good reason. You want there to be a good world for more than just yourself. You want life to be good to good people. And far too often, it just isn't. To feel let down by that is not something to be ashamed of. It means that you still feel, though you live in a world where people are trying harder and harder to feel less. But listen to me, Joe. In the 25 years ahead of you, the world is going to need people who know how to feel, including disappointed. You are not called to this. It is not your responsibility or destiny. It just turned out this way. The world needs people who are disappointed by its shortcomings. George Bernard Shaw wrote that the reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable one persists in trying to adapt the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable man. Listen to me, Joe. Being alive is not particularly good for you. But being dead is not a relief, since you don't experience anything beyond death. The only relief that you get from death is what you experience when anticipating that one day you will lay your burden down and be done with the work of life. But of course, you will be done with everything else too. In the moments where that sounds pretty good, chances are very high that you are burnt out. And that makes sense. Joe, listen to me. People will burn your ass out if they can. Some do it because they don't know better. Some do it because they care only about themselves. Some will do it because you don't set boundaries with them or because you don't maintain boundaries with them. These skills are not something that you are naturally deficient in. Everybody has to learn them, Joe. Everyone. And now, at the risk of breaking the space time continuum, I will tell you a little about the future that you are going to learn. You are going to learn that leadership in hierarchies is arbitrary and has nothing or next to nothing to do with merit. People who have money or authority are very anxious to sell everyone on that they earned it by their genius. But just like any sales pitch, the harder they sell it is the more sure you can be that even they don't believe it. Self-esteem is presumed in everyone, but exists naturally in no one except for narcissists and fools. Time goes on, whether you do something about it or not. You can choose to go and to leave this world. You can do it at any time. That's a choice. If you do not make it for yourself, one day, fate will make it for you. It isn't a miracle because it doesn't defy the physics of the real universe. Death confirms the physics of the universe. You are an open system, so your system becomes more disordered over time. Your body will change, and it will hurt. Your thinking will slow. Your energy will wane. And as these things happen, doors will close in your life. Eventually, the last door will pull you through without your choosing. Long before it does, you will be constantly aware that the door is there and that it is unlocked. When that option calls to you, it is more of a feeling than a thought. Some will try to sell you that choosing to go through that door makes no sense. They are really banking on that. They have everything literally riding on it. So maybe don't ruin the last hope that they have by stomping on their truth with the real truth. But Joe, you know the truth. The truth that most people can't handle most of the time. That crossing over into the void is an option. It's always an option. And it's a completely logical option. But it is not an obligation. Another option is to do nothing. Maybe someone will get mad at you for it, but that doesn't mean that it isn't an option. If they loved you and cared about you, they would understand if you said, I'm burnt out and I just need a minute to recuperate. I need a minute to just do nothing. I need a minute to let my mask fall. I need a minute to just regroup. I need a minute to not feel so burnt out. I just need a minute. And if you loved me or cared for me in any way, you would appreciate that and just respect that. Right now, I get it, but I just need a minute. A minute. 2 minutes? Can that really make a difference? Absolutely. Joe, listen to me. I want you to close your eyes for just a moment. Consider this. You are in space right now. We lose track of this while being bound by gravity to the nearest large object, Earth, the home of every human being who lived and died and had a child who had a child who had a child who had you. Joe, you are the heir of a long legacy of people who got burnt out. In every cell of your body is the DNA of flawed people who made mistakes, developed habits, good and bad, and spent the energy of their bodies until they were entirely spent. Like you, they often wondered, is this really all there is? Is the world really this bad? Is it meant to be this hard? Now, Winston Churchill said that men sometimes stumble across truth in this life, but fortunately, they generally pick themselves up and carry on as if nothing ever happened. When the obvious answer to the meaning of life is that this life isn't meant to be anything. When this truth is obvious, it makes people feel lost and confused and frustrated. So human beings make up lies. They make up God. They make up destiny, true love, and souls. Because the truth is so much harder. But Joe, you are in space right now. You are swimming in a current of space and time that carries you without your needing to do anything. If you just sit here now, it will carry you into the future. So when you are burnt out and fed up with the lies that you tell yourself, or that others tell you, or that you are required to tell others, you can always just set it by for a moment and let the stream of space and time pick you up and carry you. Everything in the universe that existed before you were born and will likely exist in some form after you are gone. Right now, you and the planet that you are on are both bound to the gravity of a yellow dwarf star. You have been all your life, and you will be until the day you die. And so will our blue marble. There's no purpose to it, no design or designer, like you or me. It just doesn't. We don't have to expend any energy in this task. It does it entirely on its own. That yellow dwarf star, an ordinary humdrum nuclear fusion engine, is one of hundreds of billions known to exist in our galaxy alone, which is only one of hundreds of billions of galaxies. All of them carrying on without a purpose. One day, like you and me, that star will die. It will expend all of its living energy into the void. And eventually, the matter of that engine will make new worlds. And that was true, is true about our world and about you and me. If you randomly select any two atoms in your body, both of those atoms came from a star that died. So many stars, in fact, that to say that any two randomly selected atoms in your own body came from the same star is so unlikely as to be virtually impossible. That's how many, many, many stars died in the making of you. Not for any design or purpose, just because that's what stars do. You are a child of those stars, born to a legacy of star children, all of them burning out constantly in a desperate search for a world worth living in. Surely in that time, there were many parents who looked at a generation that they had brought into the world and hoped to build a future for them that feels worthwhile. Like your parents and their parents, They likely lied to their children at some point. They told you about Santa Claus. They told you about the Tooth Fairy. They told them about God and Jesus. They told them about the Exodus out of Egypt and the Ten Commandments. They told them about the Buddha or Vishnu. They told them that life had a purpose and that they had insight into it. They were doing the best that they knew how. They didn't have the technology that you and I have to understand the universe as it actually is. Joe, truth matters to you, and you are honest about that. You people will appreciate it, but there are a few. It is important that there are people like you and me. You aren't confident of that right now. I know. I am more confident of it than ever. Because, Joe, I'm you in the future. And this is what I wish I knew more when I was you. If it matters to me, then it matters. In fact, it's all that matters. You perceive the world and think that you see it the way that it is, but you know that there are gaps. You don't see what an owl sees, and an owl can see you emitting infrared lights. To you, this seems like a paradox, but it is true. Similarly, your entire world is made up of what you perceive with your mind, and your mind exists with it. And so everything that matters to you really matters. You will never live without this mind. And with this mind, you will make every decision that you will make. So everything that matters to me matters. In fact, it's all that matters. As you go forward in time, you will learn that the past is gone. Your guilt and shame will serve you no purpose going forward. Similarly, you don't know the future. In spite of what the prophets and charlatans say, no one has the clairvoyance to see the future. And while your brain runs 1,000,000 miles a second about what might happen, most of the things that you fret about will never come to pass. And yet you are tempted to beat yourself up for them and to prepare yourself for every possible outcome. This can serve no purpose. The worst things that will happen to you in the future will blindside you from nowhere. So it is important to stop. Stop and come back to right now. If it matters to me, then it matters. In fact, it's all that matters. I'm going to tell you something that nobody should have the insight to know about their own future. Joe, you've seen Back to the Future. You know that you can accidentally erase yourself if you know. So I'm going to neuralize you after this so you don't know. So take this hope, this knowledge of the future, and bury it deep down to where the neuralizer can't get you. So that you won't know the details. But keep the hope. Because I'm going to tell you about the future, Joe. Right now, you worry a lot, Joe, about whether or not you'll ever find love. You will. Many times. You're worried about whether you will ever marry. You will. You worry about whether you will have children. You will. And 3 people will come into the world who didn't have to and will become your 3 favorite people in life. You will look forward to the world and realize that if you could, you would generate 1,000,000 suns worth of energy to make the world worthwhile for those 3 human beings with all their flaws, mostly inherited from you and from a woman who was willing to risk her whole future, risk her very life to bring those children into the world with your genetics and hers. You'll be very grateful for her all your future days, at least for 25 years, which is where I am now. And one day you will divorce. She will go on with her life, and you will go on with yours, and it will hurt, but it will be for the best. So you don't need to fret about whether or not you're going to marry somebody just to end up divorcing them. You are, and frankly, more people than not are. Once again, we live in a world made up mainly of people telling each other lies about what it means to be in love. In the process, you will deconstruct Mormonism, you will deconstruct Christianity, you will deconstruct God, you will throw all those away. You will deconstruct atheism as just a new form of religion. You will deconstruct the arbitrary guilt created by God believers in thinking that calling yourself an atheist or saying the word atheist or agnostic even is a moral failure, and you'll stop feeling bad about it. You'll be angry for a long time. You'll be angry at the church. You'll be very angry at Joseph Smith, who is dead and can't feel it. You'll feel it anyways. You'll get angry at your parents and your ancestors, your Mormon pioneer ancestors, especially. And then as you go on in life, raising children, you'll forgive them. You'll realize that in trying to make a better world for your children, you don't tell them all the truth that you know. That in trying to make a better life for your children, sometimes you'll say just about anything to keep them from feeling sad and frustrated and burnt out and disappointed like you have felt. You want to make a better world for them. And so you don't hit them with truth all at once. And then you'll realize why it is that people didn't hit you with the truths that they knew. And you'll begin to realize why it is that your parents, your ancestors, your grandparents, their parents and grandparents chose to lie to themselves rather than admit the truth. That if they could internally believe in the Santa Claus of the universe, if they could come to believe it, maybe they could spend some time in the world relieved of the responsibility and of the burden of coming up with the energy to carry on. You can't do that, Joe. I know, because I'm you 25 years in the future. And if I believed those things, if I tried to sell those things in the past 25 years, I can tell you right now, I would not have made it. I would not have made it. This is the story of you and me, Joe. We survived because we outgrew God. We survived because we outgrew Mormonism. We survived because we outgrew Jesus and Christianity. We survived because we outgrew faith. Other people are on their journey, and well, more joy to them. But truth matters to you to an almost fanatical level. I think it was Winston Churchill who said that a fanatic is someone who can't change his mind and won't change the subject. You're going to have to change the subject from time to time, because the truth that you're willing to admit to yourself is one that most people can't handle most of the time. And even you, thinking about it constantly, will return to this place again and again, where you will spin your wheels and you will expend your energy and you will burn out. I'm going to tell you a secret, Joe, learned over 25 years of hard living and a lot of anger and a lot of sadness and loneliness, that I wish I could go back and learn 25 years ago and spare myself this misery. And it's going to be a weird thing about life that I was surprised that it came down to this. Every day at 4:30 in the morning for most of your life, you're going to wake up suddenly. And when you wake up suddenly at 4:30 in the morning, or around about there, but it's shocking how oftentimes you will look at the clock and it's exactly 4:30 in the morning. You will feel this rush of energy and this can-do spirit that makes you wonder how you were ever burnt out. And you'll get up and you will carry on in life. And you will suddenly find yourself scattered all over the place and doing something that you will tell people all your life that you can't do that. It's not possible to do. And it's called multitasking. And you'll check your emails over here while you're writing the new book over here, and you'll go over here and work on the website a little bit, and you'll do this, 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 and you'll think about, I got to get the kids up, and I got to get to school, and I got to get to the, and you'll run 1,000,000 miles a minute, doing and doing and doing and doing and doing, confident that you've got everything handled, and that today is the day you're going to turn it around, and you're going to, and all of a sudden, Joe, as you well know by now, it's around 6 or 7 in the morning, and suddenly you lose all that energy, and your brain goes foggy, and your limbs lose power, and you suddenly can't figure out how you're even alive. Congratulations. You've had a meth high for about an hour. Because what happens is, as far as we know, every night your brain, when you sleep, recharges the chemicals that you need for the day, including particularly serotonin, dopamine, and neuroepinephrine. Now, Joe, you studied to become an EMT and never did anything with it, really. So you know that epinephrine is adrenaline. Adrenaline is this shit that gives you this Superman get up and go, and this confidence that you can do anything. It also is what makes your brain run 1,000,000 miles a minute while you're sitting there staring at the ceiling and realize that it is 11 o'clock at night, it's midnight, it's 1 in the morning, it's 2 in the morning, it's 3 in the morning, whatever it is. And you're sitting there wishing you were sleeping, feeling guilty that you're not sleeping. And instead, you're just sitting there running over the scenarios at 1,000,000 miles a minute of what you didn't do today, what you never do, because you're always like this, and you're not like this. And in the future, if you don't do this, it's going to blah, 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 and it's going to blah, 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 and it's going to blah, blah, blah. And it's just that shot of adrenaline that your brain keeps in there, as far as we know. Your brain keeps this shot of adrenaline for emergencies. So you can lift a car if you need to, so that you can jump away from a rattlesnake when you hear a rattlesnake rattle, so that you can pick up a child who's rolling down onto the freeway, so that you can get away from that shark, you can get away from that bank, you can get away from that. You have this shot of adrenaline, this Superman energy, Joe, that's in your brain that normally, if there were a purpose to the design of your brain, you would expend a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, a little bit all day long, and then go to sleep and then recharge it. But in the worst and most difficult times of your life, you'll find you'll wake up at 4:30 in the morning with that full shot of energy and the dial turned wide open. And suddenly you can conquer the world until 7 or 8 in the morning, and then you drag ass all day and wonder, what is it all for? Why is it that everybody else can do it and I can't? Why is it that their adrenaline is running on a normal drip? Normal. And yours is always open in the morning, or generally always open in the morning, and you expend it all in one shot. And because people in your day, Joe, in 2000, 2001, think that the only kind of depression that there is, seems to me, the people think the average person thinks that the only kind of depression that there is a lack of ability to balance serotonin. They don't even realize yet in 2000, 2001, that a drug that was known as Ritalin then, and sometimes as Adderall, while it is the key to helping, it is a key and an effective therapy to helping people manage their emotional regularity, and especially people who are on the spectrum, which is what in the future, Joe, we will for some time call the weird thing that's happening to you that makes you feel like you're not like everybody else. Turns out that what you're going through, most people are probably going through some form of it, and a lot of people going through a form of it just exactly like yours. They call it ADHD. They sometimes call it autism spectrum disorder. And sometimes now they're calling it ADHD as they come up with more words for it, more names for it, just like depression, just like any other number of neurological conditions. It becomes clear by what they call things that they were named. These things, these conditions were named long before anybody understood what they were or how they worked. And frankly, we still don't understand what they are or how they work. I'm going to tell you a secret that I'm going to neuralize out of you. And I hope that you just bury the hope down and have some hope in there that you're going to figure this out in the future. Adderall's going to change your damn life, Joe. As you look around, you're going to see that living life more like how people that they call neurotypicals is so much, how these people are living their life is so much easier than the way you've lived it your entire life. That to think that you can just go through a day and have clarity of thought and have the ability to admit to yourself, yeah, these things are true, but thinking about them doesn't give me the energy I need to accomplish this next task. And time's a wasting. I need to get this done. And realizing you don't have to feel guilty about not getting things done, because that burst of energy, that moment where you wake up in the morning, 4:30 in the morning, and all of a sudden, for some odd reason, like this is like a documented thing, I'm going to tell you, Joe, like people in your day right now, people in every day and age know this thing that you're experiencing, where you wake up at 4:30 in the morning, and it's weird. That time, that apparently is when your brain adrenaline is charged up if you slept. But nights where you don't sleep, you know them very well. Whether you let that adrenaline keep you up all night and have no energy for the next day, and think to yourself, well, there are people who do this, right? There are people who don't sleep. There are people who go days without sleeping. Yeah, a lot of those people have a lot of adrenaline in their bodies and in their brain all the time. And a lot of the time, they do what you do when you lay there and just let your brain run over all of the ways that you feel guilty about the past or ashamed about the past and all the ways in which you feel anxious and nervous about the future, in spite of the fact that you can do fuck all about either of those things. What's in the past is in the past because you are in space right now. You are in space, which is also time. It's weird. Get over it. Live with it. Flow with it. Let it happen. And you don't have to do a damn thing to go into the future right now. You don't have to make a choice about whether or not you are still conscious in the world. You don't have to make a choice about what you're going to be when you grow up. You don't have to make a choice about what the right values of life are or whether this or that is true. You don't have to do any of that. You don't have to do anything. Adderall, as big of a change as it's going to make in your life, it's nowhere near as significant as this. You also, at any point in time, can just take a couple of minutes and just drop out of the stress of a man-made fiction that is America. Take a moment and drop out of the man-made fiction that is God or purpose or meaning of life. Take a moment and drop out of the man-made fiction that there is sin and that there is forgiveness and redemption. Take a moment and drop out of the man-made fiction that there is a way that life or parenting or family or love or society is meant to be. Drop out of even the foolish man-made fantasy that your body and your brain were made with a design that corresponds with some purpose. Joe, I want you to listen to me. Okay. There are people, and you know this full well by now. You will learn it more in these 2 years in Peru than you will over the course of the rest of your life. And trust me, this is a factor for the rest of your life. And you will see it again and again and again. There are people born into the world who believe sincerely and honestly all the way deep down in their heart that this world was incomplete without them. That they can only carry on in this life if they believe that they were sent here by something or someone and for a reason. Those people are very fortunate. They're very fortunate. Or they're fools, one or the other, maybe both. You and I are never going to be those people because we believe in truth and we desire truth. In the course of the next 25 years, Joe, and this is what I'm going to tell you before I neuralize you, and you'll forget all the details of what I just said. So I want you to internalize this. I want you to open your mind and accept a little bit of hope. And take that hope, take the best things of what I'm about to tell you, and let it sink in deep inside of you. And remember this for the future. And it'll make the lessons that you are still going to have to learn so much easier to learn, so much quicker. And I hope that you do, so that when I look back from where I am, my life will have been a lot less painful. If it matters to me, then it matters. In fact, it's all that matters. You'll learn that one day when you do a trip of psilocybin, magic mushrooms. And it will occur to you in that moment that in your obsessive search for what is objectively true and trying to find a meaning in life that doesn't require you to believe in God and doesn't require you to believe in salvation or in sin, that doesn't require you to believe any lies at all. One day you will allow yourself to just feel whatever it is that you're feeling in the moment while you are on drugs. And you will have spent so much time saying up until that point, I don't get what people think that is going to happen by getting messed up or getting high and disordering your thinking. Surely if I'm going to find anything meaningful in life, it's going to come from thinking, not from experiencing whatever people experience on psychedelics. But then it will start to make sense to you that as you look around and see people trying it, atheists trying it and getting something good out of it, that you don't really give a shit, that you want to try it if it actually gives you the benefits that they get. And this obsession with the truth will start to wane more and more. Then one day you'll be watching a YouTube video from a scientific conference where they talk about how psychedelics have been discovered to actually make a difference in your brain chemistry and actually give you something that occurs naturally for other people. But for some reason, in a handful of us, and they still don't know what that reason is, it has to be replenished externally. And that will encourage you to turn to a partner and say, I think I would like to try psilocybin on a trip. Do you think that it's possible that we could arrange it? And they will look at you and say, I've only offered to help you with this for just about every day that we have been together for these past 4 years. And you will say, oh, really? And realize you had no idea. You hadn't even noticed. And then you'll try it. I won't spoil what you will experience there. It's not really important what you see there. What matters, and I wish that I had known this before, because this was not that long ago for me here in the future, Joe. And let me tell you, if I could encourage you, if I could break the space-time continuum and tell you to do one thing earlier in life, it is try psilocybin, man. You wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't believe it. Yeah, the difference it can make. Adderall too. Try Adderall earlier. Try psilocybin earlier. Dear God, please. Anyway, nobody told me that the real benefit I would get from a psilocybin trip is this brief period of time after the trip where the experiences that I had and the things I saw, if you want to call it saw, are deconstructed in my brain in the logical way that you deconstruct everything. You know full well about deconstruction. You're doing it now with Mormonism. I'm sorry that it's hard. That part's going to suck. That whole Book of Lehi thing, the Korihor thing. Yeah, I'll tell you this right now, Joe. You'd be shocked. The Korihor story that you think about so much, it's going to play such a huge part in your future. You're going to be shocked. You are going to be absolutely stunned. Korihor, it turns out everything is in Korihor. Anyway, Alma chapter 30. It's all there. That chapter you skip in the Book of Mormon, it's all there, Joe. It is all there. Neuralize this all out of you here in a minute. Because you're going to have to learn it on your own in the due process of time. Anyway, in the course of time after that first psilocybin trip, you're going to learn to know your inner child. And because that language sounds so weird, frou-frou, armchair psychology to you right now, and it is, honestly, it is to some extent. Whatever that experience is that other people get so much out of, you can get something out of it too. That was the experience where I realized more about you, Joe. You don't know this because you are the real me in the past. But the inward me in your future met the little boy that we were once. And thought that I was going to meet an angry child who was hurt by the world and hurt by people who loved him or should have loved him. And instead, I met a child who was afraid. An autistic boy who was afraid and was not understood by others. And in the world, he was alone. In every crowded room, he was alone. As a matter of fact, the more crowded it was, the more alone he was. A boy who would have to learn how to put on a mask and act like he was anything but himself in order to be treated with love and compassion by other people. Not because they didn't want to love him, but because they didn't know how. And I picked up that little boy and I put him into my arms and I held him close and I said, I'm here, Joey. Won't let anyone hurt you. If only I could do it for real. And make it so your life is a little easier in Peru. I can't, Joe. I can't go back in time, and neither can you. We can't see into the future. No one can. I live now. You live now. And knowing the future would just make you worry about it all the time. So this is the only thing that really will matter now. And now. And now. That's a Sam Harris thing. You'll understand when you get there. And that is this wisdom that I wish I could tell you now, where you are. But you will learn in the due course of time. If it matters to me, then it matters. In fact, it's all that matters. Amen.
raised in an unholy temple, cast out without my sage. But I am not dead, not beaten. From the tomb of saints I rise, raise the sinner's hand and heart. I take my oath, oh take my oath. From this breath, no gods will hold me again. To fools or kings, I'll not bend. I will stand where my fellows are, swear before these very stars. I put faith into my past. From this breath to my last. No savior can buy me, no prophet knows my fate. Truth they cannot pray for,